Let me dedicate my life to worship you. I'm a lover of your presence. I'm a lover of your presence. I'm a lover of your presence, Jesus.
Have you ever thought about getting a gift for someone that you love? I go through this exercise several times a year for birthdays, anniversaries, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, graduations, Christmas. And I always want to get people something that they like. For example, if the gift is for my sister, who her birthday is coming up very soon, I know that she likes anything that's purple, anything that has elephants on it, or something sweet. She just loves candy. You can give her that stuff all day and she'll be happy. If the gift is for my wife, I know that it must be something of good quality. Don't buy her something that's going to break down in a few days. She won't like that very much. I've also learned that my wife's favorite gifts are things that help her relax, like a foot massager, for example. But I've also learned that the gifts I give her can't be too expensive because she oversees our personal finances, and seeing a big minus on our online bank account makes her freak out just a little bit. If the gift is for my mom, it's real simple. Cash. Preferably bills that are larger than 50. She just feels that it's simpler. With cash, she can get anything she wants whenever she wants. So if anyone wants to give my mom the perfect gift, give her an envelope full of cash. I'm sure you also go through this process when you buy stuff for your loved ones. Am I right? You try to give them the stuff that they like. You try to offer them items that will make them smile or fulfill a need that they have. You don't buy a generic gift. You give people something that they appreciate, something that they value. Even when you give a gift card, the gift card is typically to a store that they like. You wouldn't give your grandma, for example, a gift card to Toys R Us. I know they're shut down. But you wouldn't give them a gift card to a toy store. You wouldn't give a vegan friend of yours a gift card to a butcher shop. Am I right? So the gift, every gift that we give depends that I have for you, for us to consider today. What kind of gift does God like? What kind of gift does God like? I think this is a very important question, especially for anyone who wants to express their gratitude to God for all that He has done for us. I mean, He has saved us. He has freed us from the chains of sin. God has blessed us in so many ways. He has provided for us. He has given us a family called the church, and He gave us hope when we were feeling down and out. So the only natural response to this kind of kindness, the kind of kindness that God has shown us, is to try to demonstrate our gratitude to God with a gift. So what kind of gift, again, does God like? Is God interested in our money? Is God interested in the structures and buildings that would glorify His name? Is God interested in songs of praise? And these aren't new questions. People have wrestled with these questions for a very long time. In the Old Testament, as a matter of fact, approximately 970 years before the birth of Jesus, we find a man who believes he found the answer to this question, and his name is Solomon. Some of you are familiar with Solomon. Solomon is one of David's children, and he was the heir to the Israelite throne after the death of David. And the Bible tells us that he was one of the richest and wisest kings that ever existed in Israel. When I say rich, I mean rich. This man was balling, especially for that time. First of all, he inherited all of his father's wealth, which was substantial. And then he received, the Bible says, a substantial daily income of 30 cores of choice flour, 60 cores of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 pasture-fed cattle, and 100 sheep. Besides that, he also received deer and gazelle and roebucks and fatted fowl. He also received tons of gifts of gold, silver, and spices as tribute from the many places that his father and him had subjugated. And he amassed an enormous amount of wealth. The Bible tells us in the book of Kings that he owned 40,000 horses. His horse stalls were so big that they functioned like cities. He had enough money to build himself a palace adorned with fine wood, stone, and gold. Not to mention, he had enough money to sustain 700 wives and 300 concubines. I don't know how the brother did it. That's too many women for one man. Too many. On top of being rich, God blessed him with incredible wisdom. Kings and queens would travel from far away to seek his guidance and his counsel. And he presided over several difficult cases over Israel, which are found in 1 Kings and 1 Chronicles. So for all that God had done for him and his father David, Solomon sought to build something in honor of God, a gift in a sense. He built God a temple. And he spared no expense. He certainly had the resources to do this. He used the entire budget that David, his father, had set aside for the project, which was 100,000 talents of gold, 1 million talents of silver, and a large quantity of iron, bronze, and precious stones. He also used another 3,000 talents of gold and 7,000 talents of silver from David's personal treasure. And then on top of that, he used another 5,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, 100,000 talents of iron collected from the various leaders of the tribes of Israel. On top, so he spent a lot of money on building this temple for God. On top of building the temple, Solomon sacrificed a ton of animals in honor of God. The first time that Solomon sacrifices in 1 Kings, in the book of 1 Kings, he sacrifices 1,000 animals. The second time it is mentioned, Solomon sacrifices, and I quote, so many sheep and oxen that they couldn't be counted or numbered. The third time sacrifice is mentioned, Solomon sacrifices 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. Needless to say, this was a big sacrifice. A lot of animals, a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of manpower. So how did God receive this gift that Solomon presented to God? And the answer to this is in 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 3. It says, the Lord said to him, I have heard your prayer and your plea, which you made before me. I have consecrated this house that you have built and put my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will be there for all time. In other words, God says to Solomon, I got your gift. I'm consecrating it, which means I'm setting it aside for a special purpose. I will put my name on it, and I will always look over it. But then God says something very interesting that hints to what God really wanted in the following verses. He says, as for you, if you will walk before me as David your father walked, with integrity of heart and uprightness, doing according to all that I have commanded you and keeping my statutes and my ordinances, then I will establish a royal throne over Israel forever. So what do we learn from that passage? For one, the gift that Solomon offered to God was not enough. Say with me, not enough. Say it with me, not enough. It was not enough to establish Solomon's kingdom forever. God was looking for something different. God was looking for obedience. These massive religious parties and building a beautiful temple, he would give God exactly what he wanted, but he made a mistake. God acknowledged the gift, but ultimately he wanted something so much simpler: obedience. The first king of Israel, Saul, made this very same mistake. Saul made many sacrifices to God, but he refused to follow God's instructions. Anybody remember his story? And the prophet Samuel confronted him in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. It says, "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obedience to the voice of the Lord? Surely to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams." Saul, he refused to obey God's instructions, and as a consequence, he lost his kingdom. And in his later years, although Solomon started off right, he lost his way. And he allowed the foreign women that he married to influence him into worshiping other gods. And this displeased God greatly. And Solomon's kingdom was split into two after his death, split between Jeroboam and Rehoboam. So what does God want? Which is the question that we're wrestling with today. What is the gift that God most deeply treasures? Our obedience. Obedience is a harsh word, am I right? It's not cool. We don't like to be told to obey. We tend to associate obedience with bondage, slavery, or entrapment. It feels like the opposite of freedom. But I have learned, church, that in obeying God's instructions, I can live my life to the fullest. I think of God's rules like instruction manuals. Have any of you ever had to build a bookcase or had to start a car using an instruction manual? Would you just raise your hand, let me know that you're with me? I've had to do that several times, especially since we just moved into a new place. Had to buy some new furniture, make sure that it's quality furniture for my wife. But instruction manuals, I've noticed, are very helpful because they inform us of how things should function and be put together. They can seem restrictive, but they are helpful because they come from the manufacturer who knows their product intimately down to the smallest detail. Likewise, God is our creator and knows us down to the smallest detail. He knows how we best function. He knows our needs and desires. And since he knows us so well, he provides us instructions on how we ought to live. He teaches us how we should relate to one another. He tells us how we should relate to him. He tells us how we should treat the stranger, the poor, and the sick. And let me tell you, when people finally start to listen, it's a beautiful thing. Why? Because they're living their lives as it was designed to be lived. A car is excellent at being a car, am I right? But a car sucks at being a plane. Why? Because a car was designed to be a car, not a plane. Likewise, we were designed a certain way by our Creator, and when we start to live our lives according to his design, we can live it more fully. So ultimately, following God's instructions is in our best interest. And I believe that it pleases God because he loves us so much to see his creation live according to the purpose he created it. So I encourage you today as I'm closing, if you truly want to offer God a gift he would like, offer him your obedience. The beautiful thing about this gift is that we can all afford it. You don't have to have a bunch of gold or silver like Solomon. You don't have to have a bunch of domestic animals to sacrifice. All that you need is what you currently have: your mind and your ears and your will to listen to God's instructions. So my challenge for you today is this. First of all, I would like for you to write it down if you would like to take something with you out of worship. First of all, I would like for you to become familiar with the instructions. The place that I would like for you to go for this is the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. See what Jesus taught his disciples, and then start and become familiar with the instructions that God gave to us. Secondly, obey. Start to apply these principles in your life. Start to use them every day. And finally, I challenge you to journal how your life is changing as you comply with God's instructions. And I guarantee you that as you do this exercise, you'll see how fulfilling your life will become. You will notice an increase in the quality of your relationships. You will experience a peace like none other, and you will feel that joy that you have never experienced before. And church, this won't cost you a dime. Give it a try. See for yourself. Experience life the way you were created to live it.